I'm Adam Ziglis. I'm president of the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists, and we have a new partnership with Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, and they've come here as our guests for a couple of days. They have a table, and they're trying to recruit some students for our dual mission. So if they're here, I'd like them to stand up briefly. Deborah Sandpearl and Virginia McInerney. Are you guys in attendance? There they are. So look for their table. They have a new award for editorial cartooning in the Scholastic Awards. So they're really they're partnering with us in our mission for public outreach and education and recruiting the next generation of editorial cartoonists. So they have a small stipend available for cartoonists interested in putting on workshops in their area and teaching, spreading the word with what we do and generating some interest. So without further ado, I'll introduce the first panel. Our first panel here is called Making Satire Great Again. And it's discussing the challenges, joys, and oddities of covering the first celebrity billionaire and the first female nominee. Before I introduce the panelists, I want to mention we have Matt Worker up front, and he will be helping us with an interesting thing we're doing with the panels. I encourage everybody to sketch. We're cartoonists here, even the students. Sketch and react to the panel, draw the moderator, draw me if you want, and pass it along to Matt. And Matt has a digital projector, so during the Q&A period, he will be displaying some of the audience artwork. So, and I know normally in our conventions we sketch a lot, so this way we can actually show it off a little bit. So this first panel, Making Satire Great Again, we have three great panelists, Pulitzer winners Signe Wilkinson, David Horsey, and Steve Breen. Signe is the staff cartoonist for the Philadelphia Daily News and the first woman to win the Pulitzer Prize for editorial cartooning. David Horsey has worked for the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, winning 2 Pulitzer Prizes, and is currently with the Los Angeles Times. And then we have Steve Breen, who's the 2-time Pulitzer winner from the San Diego Union Tribune. This discussion will be moderated today by David Graham, who is a Duke alum, and he's a writer for The Atlantic, covering politics and global news. So as, this is one of our great front burner issues, this year at the convention, an election year in a swing state, and we have, a high caliber panel, 5 Pulitzers between the 3 of them. And get your questions ready and get your pens ready to pass to Matt toward the end. So go ahead, I'll let you take it from here.
Mr. Horsey?
Apparently I'm starting. So can we get the screen up? What I want to do, anyway, good morning everybody. It's great to see you all again. So many of you have been my friends for years and years. I want to start off with, this is a little video I put together. It's nothing like the amazing stuff that a lot of you do, especially Cal, but it's my meager attempt. I thought it'd be a good way to kick this off, and I'll just say I did this, I kind of rushed to get it done last fall because I thought, I don't know how long Donald Trump's going to be around to play with. Mm-hmm. That's how much I know about politics.
So my parents say relationships take time, but I like to make things happen right here, right now. That's why I love this new dating app, Political Tinder. So let's see who's out there. Looks like the manager at Taco Bell. Okay, Stony McBonghit. Oh, look at that baby face. Grandpa? Creepy. Creepier. Not so sure I'm into girls. But maybe after a couple of drinks. Nope. Negative. Oh, hell no. Huh. He'd have to be rich to get away with hair like that. I'm thinking yes.
Your other boyfriends, what are they? Mexicans? Chinese? They're weak. Losers. I'd be a tremendous boyfriend. Women love me, and you know why? Because I'm rich. I'm really rich. I don't even know how much.
Are you f***ing kidding me? I should just listen to my parents.
A really great wall, better than the Chinese, with a beautiful doorway, a gold door, marble, and a bouncer at the door, a big guy. I know somebody, and he'll keep out the rapists and the drug pushers and only let in the good ones. It'll be terrific.
So cool.
Okay. So, one of the significant things about that was that we actually used the F word and got away with it, although bleeped out. First for the Los Angeles Times. Anyway, let me pull up this, and I think I will go over there. Okay. So, anyway, as you know, this has been just an amazing political year like none other, and I first should say that I don't have the elegant skills at caricature that Ann Telnaes does, or I'm not as really brilliantly funny as Rob Rogers, and I can't paint like Steve Sack, but I do use more words than Jen Sorensen and Matt Bors and Tom Tomorrow combined, and that's only because these days with every cartoon I do, I also write a 600-word column, which has changed my work and how I work a bit. But because I do that, and because I'm part of the national staff of the LA Times rather than the editorial page, it's given me some pretty cool opportunities. This year, I knew this wouldn't work. There we go. All right. To get in on the campaign at the ground level, I went to the Reagan Library and to the Democratic debate in the Republican debate at the Reagan Library, and then the Democratic debate in Las Vegas. And I was tweeting and doing cartoons as fast as I could. So I did a whole bunch of cartoons. This is the only one I'm going to show you because it's the only one I actually liked, because I don't draw as fast as some of you. But this is a year where there have been these normal things that happen, the debates and all, and the conventions. This is a panel I did from the Democratic convention, and then a similar. Whoop, jeez. Going too fast. There we go. This is very sensitive. And similar thing from the Republican convention. But the reality of this year is that it's been like no other. I mean, the Democratic convention was the first I've ever seen where people would be on the outside demonstrating, and then they would be inside because they were delegates. That does not happen. But many of the Bernie delegates were activists who were very uncomfortable being inside the hall, and it was a convention that at any moment felt like it could slip into chaos. It didn't happen. Meanwhile, at the Republican convention, the insurgents actually took over. People like Ohio Governor John Kasich were sort of orbiting the place in his own state, orbiting this convention, but never went inside. So a strange year in that way, and because of that, I did this cartoon not long ago, where I know some of you declared the elephant and donkey anachronisms years ago, but I have to join the crowd now. It's not enough. The Democratic Party is split pretty dramatically, but the Republicans, it's almost impossible to talk about them as a unitary party. To really talk about politics in this year, and really in many years, but especially this year, I tried to come up with just a few new symbols to use, but our politics is so fractured and so much more interesting than what donkeys and elephants can tell you that I've joined the crowd who, I've only used an elephant and donkey once in the last 2 years, so whatever that's worth.
They're there right now.
There they are. That's what I used to. So if it had only been the Democrats, it would have been an interesting year. I mean, the battle between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton has been fascinating, and it's, you know, it was a landmark development for the Democratic Party. And you had this old Vermont socialist with his army of young millennials pitted against Hillary Clinton and her loyalists, longtime feminists, people who have been waiting and waiting and waiting for the chance to elect a woman president. And this was during the New York primary. As I said, that alone would have been a remarkable thing. I followed Bernie around in California before the primary, which was a lot of fun, and Hillary as well. And this is my favorite cartoon of the year for Hillary, just because I thought it kind of captured her problem, especially with millennial women, that they kind of see her like their mom and they are not ready to listen to her. I'm going to let you read these cartoons, by the way, because I'm trying to stay on my 10 minutes here. So, pretty fascinating year just with the Democrats, but of course it hasn't been just the Democrats. On the other side, you have this phenomenon, this person named Trump, who has brought a lot of new people into the Republican Party, and the Republican Party will never be the same.
David, can I interrupt really quickly?
You bet.
You were selling your artwork short earlier, but you are an awesome artist, and cartoons like this show it. And that would take me 3 days to draw that right there.
You're really slow.
That's exhausting just looking at that.
Well, the time that really took a lot was watching all these old Roman movies, Ben-Hur and everything. Well, thank you. Thank you. Steve Breen, let's hear it for Steve. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. Beautiful.
Okay, now I have no idea where I was. So, yeah, Trump has been this amazing phenomenon, as we all know, but you know, sort of God's gift to cartoonists in a way, and yet in another way, he's been a weird, difficult challenge. And even the editors at the LA Times weren't sure what to make of this phenomenon. And in May, before the, I think it was May, before the Arizona primary, they sent me over to Phoenix, and my task was to talk to Trump supporters. We ended up doing a 2-page spread of my caricatures of these people, and I simply went up to them and said, "Why Trump?" I was trying not to judge them or anything. I just said, "Why?" Because that was a big question. I really wanted to say, "Why in the world?" But, so these are some of the people I drew. I pulled them out individually, and when it ran in the paper and online, it had what they had to say. And it was quite well received. The one comment I loved is that somebody actually, talking to one of our reporters, said, "You know, that was a nice piece, but I thought he was kind of cruel the way he drew those people." And I had to say, I didn't change. This is as close to reality as I ever do. This is how they were dressed. This is what they looked like. So, but anyway, I think the main thing I learned from talking to Trump supporters was there is no way you will change their mind about Donald Trump. And that presents an interesting challenge for a lot of people, including cartoonists. I imagine them sort of this way. This one I will read. "I vote to put that crazy guy at the end of the bar in charge of U.S. foreign policy." And the crazy guys, you know who. It's to me, it's kind of that simple, and that's scary. So how do you deal with, in cartoons, with a candidate who is a caricature himself, who is so outrageous that you can't make up anything crazier than what he's already doing, and that when you draw him, people actually like it. I think this cartoon is way back from the New Hampshire primary, making his mark in New Hampshire. And at the time, I just thought this was sort of a silly cartoon, but actually I think it captured the guy, willingness to just be out there, say anything, do anything, pee on anybody, and sort of his arrogance and his confidence, and it's the things that cartoonists find to criticize about Trump are actually the things that his supporters like. So as far as changing anyone's mind about anything, I don't think that's happening. I thought his outreach to African Americans was a little ridiculous. This is how I drew him. But, you know, his supporters don't. So Trump is a endlessly great target, but everything bounces off him. And this is sort of my ultimate grim look at Trump. You can look at him as a sort of a buffoon, a joke. You can look at him as an incompetent, just a guy filled with bravado, or you can look at him, if you take his policies seriously, as a dark force that's going to change America forever. But however you look at him, and I've drawn him all those different ways, if any of us think we're changing anyone's mind, it's not happening. The lines are set and the battle is drawn, and whatever we draw is just, I guess, reinforcing the people who already agree with us. And I'm not sure that's that different from how life has been. Anyway, just throw out a few thoughts there. I'm going to turn this over to Signe, and from now on I'm going to be the AV boy. So we'll see if this all works. Thank you.
Can you cue me up?
Yes.
Hi, this is my first time at Duke. This is an awesome campus, and thanks for having us. I'm going to talk about three things. I'm here because I'm a woman, and they wanted a woman's perspective on the campaign. So I'm speaking for all women of the United States of America. and I'll see how women do. But there are three things I think are kind of interesting in coverage of this. One is the technology and how it's changed, how we cartoon. Two is just a little bit about what David mentioned, like how do you make a difference with a cartoon when people are already so divided? And three, a little bit about women, you know, how cartooning with ovaries changes your entire style. Any rate, you have to know that when I got started cartooning, there was no internet. I drew on paper. I handed it to a guy in the composing room who would take a photo of it. Somebody else would take the positive from that photo, take it over to the other part of the composing room. They would cut it out, paste it on a paper with all the editorials. That would be photographed, and then it would be transmitted to the presses. Things have changed. It's now me and the presses, as all of you know. So I wanted to start out with 4 years ago, fast forwarding to something that the Duke students here should know, and that is the reason we have children is to keep us current with technology. 4 years ago, I was listening to the debates with my daughter, who was out of college, and we had a chalkboard in the kitchen, and the whole binders full of women came up. I drew this on the chalkboard during the debate. My daughter took a picture on her iPhone, which of course I didn't have one. She tweeted it out, and that was my inauguration into social media. Fast forward again, and this of course never made it into the paper, and it was my first recognition that a lot of what we do now isn't necessarily going to end up on our official websites for those of us who have bigger newspapers. So this year, when I listened to the debates this is how I would learn what they looked like. This was one of my first sketches of Donald Trump. It was just in, can I have that yellow book?
Yes.
Yeah. I would just do them in books like this, take an iPhone picture of it, I now have one, and tweet it out during the debates. This one, the next one, is the first time I noticed how orange his face was. So I kept going with that. But of course, I did all of them then. Ben Carson, remember his fruit remark, his basket of fruit remark. Ted Cruz, I loved his eyelashes. I missed them so much. And I always loved making him look as effeminate as possible. Yes, that is totally wrong, and I should not do it, but I did. Marco Rubio, who, let's face it, was stolen from the comic strip Dondi. And they wonder why more women don't get into politics. That was after the debate.
That's a great one.
That's really good.
That's great.
That was after the debate where everybody was comparing sizes. This was my first cartoon of Donald Trump that was over a year ago. I mean, has this been torture or what? It's way too long. But anyway, I don't even know what this cartoon meant, but when he came out with the whole wall thing and I saw his hair, that's just what came to mind. And this is a more recent one after his wife turned out to have gotten in. You're tired, you're poor, you're Slovenian models. A year ago, which seems like 5 decades now, in Philadelphia, something else was going on other than the debates, but we were already doing debates. And I thought this was, I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 caricatures in one cartoon. And for me, that's a lot. But that's who was most popular this time last year by a wide margin. Even Donald Trump had to admit it. I did some negative ones on Hillary. This was actually my first one I did after she, into her candidacy. All my emails are backed up on the cloud. But I've been drawing Hillary since the 1990s, and when she first came on the scene, this is like 2 years, well, about a year and a half into the Clinton presidency. And I have to say, no offense to any cartoonists here, I was furious at the way people were caricaturing her. I mean, if I saw one more cartoon with her, with Clinton, her husband as a puppet, I was going to draw a cartoon myself, and this is how it turned out. She was, she was the man, she was the controlling Oz behind the curtain. Then she became the healthcare queen, and she was like a saint. And then Whitewater, she turned into a Shakespearean witch. So I've been drawing her for a long time. As you can see, my caricatures and my drawing style have changed quite a lot since then. Trump's polls are soaring. But this is after she was nominated. And she became the first woman ever to be nominated for a political party in the United States. And I have to say, as a woman, it was thrilling. I happened to work on a project in North Philadelphia where Lucretia Mott and another woman who were the 2 of the 7 people at the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 are buried. And to think that these women have waited 160 years or so to see someone come to this position, it was just thrilling. And I don't mind doing one once in a while, just saying that, even though, yes, I am a woman, and I am sticking up for the cause. But then there was this: the Democratic National Conventioneers meet their PA Democratic hosts. Half of our Democratic politicians in Philadelphia are in jail at the moment. So there are many ways to treat this. This is another one. Hold these truths to be self-evident. All people are created equal. This was right before, or at the beginning of the DNC. This is another one I drew listening to what was going on. It never made it into the paper, but this went around really, really big on social media. This is off of Beyonce for you older people. Democrats, get information. You'll have to look it up at the Beyonce video for those who haven't. But it was fun doing the caricatures. And then at the end of the convention, I did this. Most people missed the fact that I was going, costumes, the sleeves were going from the suffragettes to modern. But I was criticized for being politically correct and having African American arms, because we know that no African Americans helped with women's rights. And my favorite email after it was, subject line, who gives a fuck? This is a little bit about women and politics. A women's presidential cycle, year 1, all's well. Year 2, coping, thanks. Year 3, feeling good. Year 4, suddenly irritable. Because we're all about our ovaries. And this was when Trump opined about abortion. The woman, the doctor, the dad. Ooh. And we must end all abortions. Okay. Done. And like Steve, I went out and did some on-the-street sketching. I just went around to construction workers, to guys, they were all men, to find out, what their political points of view were. And like Steve, I found out many of them were closet, they didn't want to say it, but they were Trump supporters, and I really agree with them. There's something so fundamental about their belief that I don't think cartoons in and of themselves are going to change that. This was a window guy, and he was socially liberal, so he was upset about Trump on that, but financially he supported him. And this was a different one. This was a union worker. He said, I'm practically a socialist. I'm for Hillary all the way. But most of the guys I interviewed, and then I did like Steve did, I did a news story that went with it and ran in the news part of the paper. So this I'll finish up. This one is my most recent one. Speaking of crooked foundations, Donald Trump. I live really close to Atlantic City, and that city has been destroyed by casinos, 3 of which were Donald Trump's. So I feel like if people could see that, they would realize his great business acumen was actually getting out and leaving other people with the tab. But this was, again, one of the most popular ones I did right after the DNC. No dogs, no camping, no littering, no fires, no booze, no politics. People are sick of this whole campaign. So there you have it. And on my board, my chalkboard now is a well-worn Obama who's disappearing as he's leaving with all of us brushing up against him.
Nice. Very nice, David. Right, so I'll just flip through these.
I guess so.
Okay.
Yeah, and you
can I
can do
see an overview of what they are?
Sure, yeah.
And then I'll...
Yeah, we're just discussing here. You people talk among yourselves. Yeah, actually.
That's good, yeah. And
Yeah.
then I'll just kind of, okay. I won't show all.
All right.
So I'm going to sit here because I'm using Dave's laptop. My name's Steve Breen, and I'm the editorial cartoonist at the San Diego Union Tribune, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me and us, and it's a fun year for cartoonists. It's exhausting, I always tell people. Yeah. It's so fun.
You can just tap that. Anyway.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
one of these. Yeah, but maybe I want to like
Okay,
jump in.
I'll sit back. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm just going to show a few cartoons here that I've done during the campaign. I don't even know why I'm showing some of these, but things have been so crazy. I mean, 17 people on the GOP side, that was a lot to deal with. Then you had all the craziness with Sanders and Clinton, and then of course Trump. It's like I say, it's almost overwhelming. You know, like we love presidential elections, right, as editorial cartoonists, but this year it's almost like too much, right? Do you feel that way a little bit? I do.
Well, when you have 15 people on a debate.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot of drawing.
It's a lot of drawing. So there was a time when, you know, we were thinking Biden would jump in.
You can
Burn-
scroll there.
Yeah, here's Sanders. That logo was very convenient for this Sanders cartoon when we saw that the DNC didn't really want him. Let's see if I can find another Sanders
I
cartoon
like the
here.
socks.
Oh yeah. They're like those old man black socks that. Let's see, another Sanders cartoon. Oh yeah, everyone was playing with the burn. You know, feel the burn. There's my take on that. Hillary was forced to give up her server, her email server. Let's see, here's another server one. 1998, I hope they don't find any incriminating evidence on it. 2015,
We're not
I hope they don't find any incriminating evidence on it. The whole page bigger? Here, look, I'll move this over. Wait, watch. There we go. I could tell that was Walt Handelsman.
If you reduce the zoom to like 90%, I think you can fit them all on that screen up in the top left.
Okay, I'm gonna
Isn't it great having people tell you from the audience?
Take
what?
what?
Take it down
Take
to
that to 75.
75. Okay, we're gonna take this down to 75.
Ooh.
Nice. Here's another Hillary Clinton cartoon with millennials.
I like it.
And thanks. Let's see. And here's a recent Hillary one I did. We support Hillary Clinton. Ooh, that's unfair.
Son of a
Donald
bitch.
Trump. This is an old Donald Trump one I did. El Nino. Here's another one I did last year. Extremists. And here's one I did on the GOP, suicide vest. And here's a more recent one I did. Foreign policy plans, Mickey Mouse, Donald, and national security comments, Goofy. So there's a few of my cartoons. There we go. Now we can move on.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, nice and quick.
Aren't you going to do the interview?
Oh, the interview. Oh, well, yeah, I could show that.
Do we have the internet?
Can we get the internet on here?
Let's see what we can do.
See if you can do
So
it.
we're going to
Now,
work on this for a second. Matt,
Yeah.
do you have anything to show us? No. Get some drawings to Matt, guys. What are you doing? We're doing all the work up here.
What is it?
we're trying to find a video that I did for my newspaper. Newspapers are encouraging, I don't know all cartoonists, but this cartoonist is being encouraged by his newspaper to do videos. And since I don't know Flash, I don't really know animation, I've done other things. So we'll see if we can call up one I've done. It doesn't look like it's going to work.
Oh, I think so.
No, it's going to work.
Oh, it's going to work. It might work.
Well, so while we're working on this, I wanted to start off with a question. All of you sort of alluded to this. You know, Trump seemed at some moments to be kind of a fleeting phenomenon. At what point did you realize you were going to be drawing a lot of Trump and you had to deal with him seriously as an editorial matter?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Actually, the reason I put in that first one with Trump at the wall was, and that again, that was over a year ago, it was July of 2015, if we can remember that far back. And I was worried about him then, and that's why I did that's why I started doing cartoons on him then. And you know, this program is we certainly didn't have enough time to do all the cartoons we've done on anything. But I've done, you know, dozens between now and then, including one, Donald Duck stepping.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. With him is, you know, he did look like a duck, and his name is Donald. So, at any rate, you know, I think that while I couldn't believe it in my brain, I mean, you could see it right away. The one with Hillary and her hair was also over a year ago, because I think people saw right away that he was attracting so much attention and support, despite the New York Times.
All right, shall we?
All of us.
Yeah, totally.
Are we there?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So this is a video I made a few months ago for the newspaper with Hillary.
Probably interrupted by obnoxious pre-roll. No, yes.
Okay, that's good. So, Madam Secretary, welcome. Have you enjoyed your visit to the San Diego Union Tribune?
Yes, I have.
So, do politicians like yourself appreciate the stress and the deadline pressure that an editorial cartoonist like me has to deal with every day?
Because I know so much about the job and how hard it is, but I also know that the job has only gotten harder.
I told you I was going to do this.
Right.
I have something to show you, and I think you are going to crack up.
I can't wait.
I know you have a thick skin. I know you could take it. I think you're really going to cackle at this. It's a drawing of you, okay, with Bernie Sanders and an FBI agent chasing you, because they're both on your tail as you're running for the White House. You see? You're sweating and looking worried. So I think this is pretty funny. Awkward.
Brilliant.
Thank you. So we're trying new things. We'll see.
All right.
Do you find that stuff comes easily? How did you work in that format?
Yeah, it all kind of came together. I mean, I'm not the first person to do something like that. You know, they had those good beer commercials where people were interacting with coaches up at the podium. But again, I don't know animation, so I was just trying something different. We're being encouraged to try little videos, you know, for hits for our website. So I thought that would be fun. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it strikes me, you know, 50 years ago, Herblock's era, most of the political satire being done was cartoonists at newspapers. And, you know, in the last few years, we've been overwhelmed by these, you know, Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert and others doing this brilliant political satire, making us all look like, you know, old fogies.
Which we are.
Yeah, but we don't have like 100 writers either. But
Yeah, that's the
when I
thing.
see something like this, I think, well, maybe we don't have to even draw. I mean, all the time. I mean, it's like maybe it's time to define ourselves more in that broader world of political satire. And sometimes, I mean, that was brilliant.
Thanks. I've done others that weren't as good, just for the
I
record,
believe
but,
that.
you know, but they're hard to do.
But I think that's the exciting thing right now about our profession is there are actually so many new ways to go that it's good to get beyond thinking.
This is a sort of broader journalism question. Obviously, is social media a boon or a nightmare? And I'm curious, given that the surfeit of satire out there, but also the ability to spread things more. Signe, you were talking about venturing into social media. How have you found that's changed the way you've done your job, and is it for the better or for the worse?
Well, morally, it's for the worse, because you're on there going, oh, only 2 people liked it. But I think in the long term, it's really, it's good if you define social media as different ways of getting political commentary out there. And I don't know how many of you saw last week's Jay-Z and Molly Crabapple collaboration in the New York Times. Anyone see it?
I missed that.
If you look it up, it is absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to hook up with Beyonce and do, oh no, she's in town next week. But it's sort of like, it's a different way of doing things that are over time to make a political point. And I think it's thrilling. And we're lucky to have newspapers, weak as they are, but behind us, so that we have a platform that right away we have thousands of subscribers to the newspaper website, where somebody just starting out has to build their brand from scratch. And I think that, well, during the convention, a video from Huffington Post came and did Ann Telness and me and Jen Sorensen, and we were asking them, why doesn't Huffington Post have a cartoonist? And they go, oh, I never thought of it, because you guys, I mean, this is so interesting. I'm like, yeah. Get one, to get 10. And I think if we can offer things like what you did, what the different animations are, you'll see one of Cal's later. I think, that's going to be great, and we'll find a lot of different ways of doing it.
So it's fantastic. I think it's totally awesome. I mean, if 20 years ago, if you said to a cartoonist, how about we offer you a way that instantaneously you could push a button and send your cartoon to thousands of people into their purses and pockets, or to where they could look at it right now, we would all say, that's fantastic, let's do it. It's just perfect for editorial cartooning.
Yeah.
It's great.
Interesting point here about reader feedback, and I have a couple questions along this. You were commenting you love being able to have reader comments. I feel like a lot of people are of the opinion that you should never read the comments and that it's bad. Why do you like being able to get that reader feedback?
Because if you read the reader feedback, you'll know why people support Donald Trump. Our trolls are Trump supporters. So, I feel like if you don't read them, you don't know what's going on in the subconscious of American political life.
Mm-hmm. Well, so Steve, you're coming at this from a slightly different angle, because you're a token conservative. You're drawing for a more conservative audience, but you're not a Trump supporter.
No.
Has that been a difficult balance for you?
Well, kind of, yeah. It's been weird in the sense that there's a lot of readers who kind of, have looked to me for years like, oh, he's right of center, so he's gonna toe the party line. He's gonna support Trump, and I don't. And they're just, really, really nasty with their, emails saying that I've betrayed them and how I'm, a huge liberal now, just because I don't like Donald Trump. So it has been weird in that sense. But I've always thought that Trump was a jerk. I mean, I remember when I was 13 years old, vividly watching 60 Minutes, and Mike Wallace interviewing him, going, "Why do you have to put your name on everything?" And he just looks at Mike Wallace and goes, "Because it sells, Mike." And I just thought when I was a kid, thinking, what an asshole. So I've been a long-time Trump detractor.
That's
Made what you are today.
Made me what I am today.
Traumatized you.
But that's why the New Hampshire cartoon was so brilliant, because that's exactly what he was doing,
Yeah.
even as a businessman.
Yeah.
Crass and no class.
Right.
Well, it's got to be a challenge to satirize that, though.
Well, yeah, as I was saying earlier, that is it. I mean, in one way, it's very easy. This is the easiest guy in the world to just either physically or just everything he does is worthy of satire. But the problem is, we're like in a different reality here. It's like, basically we're illustrating his life, and people like it.
I was lucky enough to have Schwarzenegger to caricature when he was governor of California. And were you in California then?
Not quite.
Not quite. You missed it. You
chance.
missed it. But I never thought that someone would be more colorful and outlandish than Schwarzenegger. But here we have someone.
Well, Schwarzenegger actually was
He was sort of an adult.
Yeah, I mean, strangely. I mean,
Yeah.
he did seem like the weirdest possible guy.
Yeah.
A joke candidate.
So you're for Trump?
Yeah, oh, yeah, sure. Well, no. I mean, I have had
good for
sick
business,
thought that, yeah, I mean, I know what I'd be doing for the next 4 years. I could draw all the cartoons now and then, but I don't know if I think I love my country more than that, but,
Can we pause for a second? I want to see. I think Matt has some stuff to show us. Just shout. It'll be fine.
I'll shout. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Here's some of the doodles from the audience. Switch to the projector. For the overhead projector. There we go. Here's Mike Jenkins. I think that a lot of people naturally, being cartoonists, like to draw characters. So,
My forehead. I'm violent offender. That's good. Look at that.
this is Ross Gossi, I guess. What else do I have here?
That looks like Hillary introducing Hillary.
yeah.
Here, Donald Scholl from Alaska.
Yay.
Trump preaching into the side of the stage.
What is that?
Well, that's you next to Trump. There you go.
Watch your back, Steve.
Signe's thing about
That's great. T-shirts. You need to make T-shirts.
Yeah.
I'm not stealing this from Matt Wars and the Avenging Uterus.
Who did that?
And almost as a retort,
I don't know.
Steve Hartley caricature of Steve Breen with a very good pencil.
Thank you. I like that. It's huge. It's huge.
Okay, I'll see if I get more.
So,
Excellent.
Thank you.
so Dave,
Those are great. Thank you.
I had one thought about Trump. I mean, you know, Steve's in this interesting position, being a more conservative cartoonist, but you know, it's not unusual that he would be, you know, have bad feelings about Trump. I mean, you can make in fact, I did a column like this earlier this week. You can simply take conservatives' criticisms of Trump and, you know, just destroy him with that. You don't. It's really and that kind of gets back to where I started with my presentation. That the old lines do not fit this election. Trump he's apart from conservative or liberal or anything. He is a phenomenon on his own, which has been fascinating to try to chronicle in cartoons.
But the idea of destroying him is also out of date. I mean, you pointed out.
Oh, yeah.
You can't. Nothing that anybody says sticks to him, and so to a certain extent, you're preaching to the choir. You said maybe that's not really much of a shift. Do you guys feel like?
Yeah, I've only had one person in my life ever say, "You changed my mind." Either
Was it this year?
no, in my whole career.
Yeah.
No, and not this year at all. I mean, usually I'm either a total idiot because they disagreed, or I'm like a saint and a genius because they agree with me. And I was thinking, I don't think it has anything to do with me.
Do you find that frustrating to not be able to reach people? You make these incisive comments and then only the fans listen.
I do make a lot of incisive comments. It is true. But, there have been several columns recently about how the media hasn't been really on Donald Trump's, some of these more serious allegations against him, and they aren't covering them. And this was a column in the Washington Post. And I emailed the guy and said, haven't you been looking at the cartoons in your paper? I mean, Tom Tolles has been on this every single day. Ann Telness has been on it pretty much every single day, and you know, she's paid a huge price for it with people attacking her personally. You know, and that actually concerned me because this was a journalist who has two terrific cartoonists in his own newspaper and doesn't see us, doesn't see our commentary as part of the commentary on the politics. I think, you know, cartoonists generally have been really, really strong throughout this, including conservative cartoonists like Glenn McCoy's stuff. I don't I don't obviously agree with any single one of them, but his cartoons are really, you know, they're out there. They're devastating about his point of view, and they're to say that, you know, nobody is taking these things seriously, I think is really wrong. We are the cartoonists of America.
We're the most serious people.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I talked to a couple of you about this, the idea that in an election so absurd, taking it seriously doesn't make a lot of sense. It makes much more sense to satirize. That plays a little bit uneasily with the idea that it's beyond satire. In an election where so much commentary seems to be pointless, do you think that these drawings can get through to readers in a different way?
Well, I mean, readers certainly respond to them. I mean, that's one of the great things about the newspaper shift to online is we can now measure how many people are looking at cartoons, and it's a lot of people. Suddenly it's like, oh, I guess we won't fire you this week.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people are really engaged, but and satire is almost the only way to deal with this particular election, especially the Trump phenomenon, because reasoned argument goes nowhere. So you might as well have fun with it and just point out the absurdity. If people like absurdity, that's, you know, if they're going to vote for it, you know, I can't change that. But really, I think the most effective, and we're talking a lot about Trump, but he has so dominated this election that it's unavoidable. But that is the only thing I think that slows him down at all is ridicule. And anyway, a lot of Trump supporters here, by the way. I just wondering if we're getting in trouble. There we go.
There's one.
Joel Pat, he's actually chairman of the
Cartoonists for Trump.
Cartoonists for Trump. In fact, he's the
Now, I will say that for as horrible as Trump is, some of his points, and this is just me, some of the points that he's made are I don't want to say good, but because I'll have Sharpies and notebooks thrown at me, but are not without some merit. Like, you know, we can't just have borders willy-nilly, people coming in, you know, we all know the arguments, but just the horrible, obnoxious, toxic way he's gone about these arguments are just, I don't think should have a place in American politics, the way he's doing it. You know, like the deal with Iran, that was horrible, and that's one of his big talking points. So there are, in my mind, some legitimate points that he's making, but it's just that the messenger is beyond imperfect.
Well, that reminds me of all these Trump supporters I talked to over in Phoenix. Most of them were very nice people and had real concerns that were totally valid. But I kept thinking to myself, I wanted to say to them, you know, he's not going to do anything about this. He doesn't actually care.
Right.
Last week he thought something else.
Right.
Next week he's going to think something else.
That's
so
right.
I think you're right. There are valid issues and valid concerns, but he's actually not. He's a con man. So
he is. He's a con man, and that's another thing that I kind of have in my brain as I'm drawing, and that is, I think some of my liberal counterparts see Trump as totally evil, and I guess I get why they do, but I don't think he's truly evil. I think he's all about himself, and, you know, I mean, if these, you know, Mother Teresa's Sisters of Charity order, you know, said something nice about them, then he would suddenly be their biggest supporters, you know, and I don't know. I don't think he's a horrible racist. But
just his friends are.
No, right. But there's people supporting him who are, and he's not denouncing them, which is almost as bad as being a horrible racist. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a fine line, and I'm sure that there's people here who think I'm an idiot and disagree with me. But
Signe, possibly.
Maybe.
Is he an idiot?
I'd like to get back to one of the things that you said about the difference of, you know, supporting, that the candidates themselves don't fit neatly into the old party lines. And that goes for Hillary. I think that the parties are changing underneath them. And the reason that we're not going to have a Democratic donkey and Republican elephant is that the two parties are going to be totally different 4 years from now.
Yes.
millennials in particular just don't fit in. Like the young guy, Kyle, whom I interviewed, you know, he was early 30s, he had his own little business, and he's much more in the libertarian mold of fiscally conservative and socially liberal. And then there'll be the opposite people. So I just think that that we're watching a huge realignment, and it's one of the things that Hillary is having a problem on, and why, you know, much as I'm trying to support her personally, and my cartoons from here on in, as it gets closer to the election, will be more pointed on that. I support her with a lot of caveats because I feel like, you know, a lot of the stuff that Bernie complained about her on her support of the war, some of her other policies really aren't going to be the policies of the future. So I think it'll be interesting. The next 4 years are going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I'd love to get some questions in from the audience if folks have some questions they'd like to ask. Yeah. Got microphones on either side here.
Here, I got a couple other cartoons.
Excellent. Yeah. Let's see some cartoons.
Here's Kevin Necessary from Cincinnati. And here's David Horsey, North Carolina's own David Horsey.
Oh. Excellent. I love that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My question, I'm Jimmy Margulies.
Jimmy.
My question has to do with things that you kind of danced around a little bit in the drawings and the discussion, and that is not just taking on the candidates, but on the electorate. Dave started off with the video of the millennials, the sketches that Signe did of some of the supporters, and Dave did Trump supporters. Hillary got a lot of negative comment for her comment about Trump supporters, half of them are baskets of deplorables. Mm-hmm. But I think that that's a valid thing to go after these people that are either evil and rotten to the core, or gullible as hell for supporting Trump. So how do you feel about that? And have you gotten any guidance or restraint from your editors if you would propose doing cartoons on that type of subject, not just the candidate?
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation, because that, when this election's over, if
it's over.
if Trump, let's hypothesize that Trump loses, who knows?
Yeah.
The Trump movement, the Trump people will still be out there, and I think most of them are not crazy Nazis and racists, but a lot of them are really believe some stuff that just is not true.
Oh, right.
And it's a phenomenon that half of the United States, half of the voters in the country are going in that direction. So how do you turn that back to more traditional, respectable republicanism, or what does it become? But I think that goes to what you were saying. Over the next